How do you drop PMI? Well, the answer to that question is not quite as straightforward as we might think it is sometimes. As I've found out in the past couple of years, the guidelines to this are a little bit murky, and sometimes it depends on which servicer has the loan. There are some, like everything else, like all the loan guidelines, there are some that are agency required, and then some the servicer may have some additional guidelines as well. So let me go through the guidelines for Atlantic Bay's subservicer. It's a company called Loan Care. So first of all, there's something called automatic cancellation. You're familiar with this. So we normally would say once the loan reaches 78% loan to value of the original value, then the PMI can be dropped. But that's not entirely accurate. The guideline there, or the automatic cancellation requirements are that the PMI is to be canceled on the date that the principal balance of the loan is scheduled to reach 78% of the original value of the property. Okay. So if the homeowner pays down a large, sum in the first year or whatever, and they're below 78%, that it's not going to trigger automatic cancellation. It's based on the date that the loan is scheduled to reach 78%, which, depending on where they started, could be some years down the road. Or it would be the first day of the month following the date of the midpoint of the mortgage is reached, if the date of the 78% hasn't already been reached. I wouldn't worry about that one, because you're almost always going to be way past that by the time you get to the midpoint of the mortgage. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's automatic cancellation. The next one is, what if the borrower wants to initiate cancellation of PMI on their own? So there's a couple ways they can look at this. First of all, it could be based on the original value, or it could be based on the current value. So let's talk about original value first. So if they're below 80% based on the original value, then they can reach out to the servicer and request that the PMI be dropped. There's no seasoning requirements around that, but the servicer does need to confirm that the value of the property is not less than it was at origination. And they can do this through a BPO, a certification of value, a new appraisal, which is probably what's going to happen, is they're going to want to do a new appraisal or some other valuation source. But in most cases, what I've seen is that the servicer is going to want to get a new appraisal done, and the borrower, of course, would pay the cost for that. Also, the loan has to be current on both of these options. Back to the automatic too, the loan has to be current, but on this one, there can't be, there are some requirements as far as any late payments and that sort of thing. Okay, and then lastly, if it's based on the current value, so in other words, the borrower bought the home, and now we've had this appreciation, the value's much higher, and they think they're below 80%. So this one gets a little bit more complicated. There is a 2-year seasoning requirement. So as a general rule, the PMI has to stay on there for 2 years. That can be waived if the loan to value is below 75%, and if the borrower can provide a list of significant improvements that they've made. And they do have to provide a list of everything they've done. And then possibly the 2-year seasoning requirement could be waived. Now, if it's past the 2 years, but under 5 years, then the loan to value has to be below 75%. And then again, of course, there are some requirements around the monthly payments being current and that sort of thing. So just know it's not as straightforward as reaching 80% or reaching 78% even. But we just need to let our clients know the best thing for them to do is reach out to their servicer. The servicer would be the company that is taking their payments, and find out from them what their requirements are around PMI cancellation. They can guide them through that and go from there. Hope this information is helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have specific questions, and thanks for watching. See you.